Hello, I'm Dr. Dorothy Mensah-Aggrey, and I work at the Institute for Pastoral Initiatives at the University of Dayton. I'm going to give just a brief synopsis of the directory for catechesis. And I know that a lot of people have spoken about this directory. I'm going from a different angle, what it means to the Institute for Pastoral Initiatives as we move forward with the formation of a catechist. Now, I think that the core message can be found in paragraph 13, which is the part of the very first chapter. And it reads, God has revealed his love, and from the depths of the divine plan comes forth the newness of the Christian proclamation. We can tell all peoples God has shown himself in person, and now the way to him is open. Beautiful, isn't it? The way to him is open. So how do we, as catechists or as persons who assist in forming catechists, move forward? What is this way that is open? I remember sometime last year, I had the privilege of interviewing Archbishop Ezekiela, and I asked him a question, and his response was, catechism is about being. It is not so much doing, because I think most of us are so used to, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I teach, I do this, but it's about being, and it is true. It is about being formed. It is about an encounter, as a number of the bishops who provided videotapes initially on the directory suggested. It is about this encounter with Christ. And I've often said, and I may sound like a broken record, but when you encounter Christ and there is no transformation, then you met some other guy. You did not meet Christ. Because when you encounter Christ, there has to be some transformation within you. So I believe that is what the directory for catechesis is drawing our attention to. And, catechesis has always been at the core of the church's missionary mandate. So really, it is the responsibility of the magisterium to ensure the proper handing on of the faith to future generations. I am a Marinist Educational Associate, and so, I often read about Blessed William Chaminade. And one of the things he said was, new times call for new methods. So things change. And so catechism, being dynamic, also calls for new methodologies, ways of teaching, handing on the faith, so that those coming after us would also imbibe the same message of Christ. So we find that the directory for catechesis is placed firmly and squarely within the kerygma. We have to go back to what Jesus said to Peter. You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will never prevail against you. You can find that in Matthew 16 following. So all that we do goes back to being a part of the church. We are not individualistic. We form a collective whole. One of the things I noticed was the text of catechesis. And I would encourage you to just grab your copy and read that for yourself. My attention was drawn to the formation of catechists, probably because that's what I do best. I particularly like what I read in paragraphs 139. Formation, therefore, sustains the missionary awareness of the catechist through the internalization of the demands of the kingdom that Jesus has manifested. Formative work for human, Christian, and missionary maturation requires a certain accompaniment over time because it works on the core that generates the person's activity. So catechesis is not done alone. Being human it's a community affair. No one lives by themselves. Well, you can be living in alone, but I mean, you were born into a family. Catechesis is done within the family of the church. And I believe that is what the directory for catechesis is talking about. I also like the part where it talks about contemporary culture and the digital culture. Well, when you talk about digital culture, the VLCFF falls right underneath that, because what we do is mostly virtual learning. Another aspect of the directory for catechesis that I think we need to pay close attention to, it's the part on contemporary cultural scenarios. And let me just read a part of this to you. This will be found in paragraph 319, and it reads, Catechesis participates in the ecclesial challenge of opposing processes found on injustice, on the exclusion of the poor, on the primacy of money in order to act instead as a prophetic sign of promotion and of the fullness of life for all. These are not only the issues that must be given attention, but essential concerns of catechesis and of ecclesial pastoral practice. They are signs of a catechesis fully at the service of the inculturation of the faith. Fully at the service of the inculturation of the faith. Now, one may ask, what does this mean? I go back to the fact that when you encounter Christ, there is a transformation, and that transformation permeates every aspect of the culture. So when we come back to this, yes, then it makes sense. If we allow the transformation that we ourselves have experienced, that goes within our families, it takes place at our workplaces, and then slowly it seeps into society. I think that is what the directory for catechesis is talking about. Another aspect that I'd like to draw our attention to will be found in chapter 8, where the directory speaks about working for a culture of inclusion against the logic of the disposable. Of notable mention are the elderly, persons with disabilities, migrants, marginal persons, persons in prison. I find that quite interesting because this is fresh. It's almost like a springtime in catechesis, and it is such a welcome. I would move our attention forward again to the third part, chapters 10 and 11, where again there's this notion of catechesis within contemporary cultural scenarios. And I find that we have to be mindful of the fact that what the directory is calling us, whether we are forming catechists or we are catechists ourselves, is the notion of enculturation, not enculturation. And then acculturation and not assimilation. And I'd like to read a few snippets here, again, from the directory, paragraph 397. And it says, the first part, there are a couple of bullet points. The first is getting to know deeply the culture of persons, activating relational dynamics marked by reciprocity that foster a new understanding of the gospel. So that is important, that we get to know the people and the cultures instead of superimposing what we think to be truth. What we think to be truth, right? And then the other bullet point that I like to read is making it understood that seeds of the gospel are already present in cultures, although it transcends and is not exhausted in them. So this is where you interact with any cultural group. And, sometimes some of us seem to think that we are the ones going in and going to present the truth to them. But the directory is telling us that no, that is not the case. We should be mindful of the fact that there are already seeds of the gospel within that culture. And I believe it's because if we all bear the image and likeness of God, then the inherent knowledge of God exists in every culture, and we need to be mindful of that. The Institute is actually designing a 3-week e-seminar which gives just a basic introduction of the directory for catechesis, and then we'll follow that up with a 5-week course which will delve deeper into it. Thank you. God bless the work that you do, and God continue to encounter us every day so that we may continue with this transformational process.